Hello everybody, Andrew Casey from Hypersanity Books for Kids. Today I'm taking a look at Miss Potter and some writing tips. Sometimes watching certain movies is good for your writing journey. Also, just appreciating a simpler life, and that's something that I got out of watching Beatrix Potter. Also, with today's video, I'm doing a shout out to Dark Violet Dreams. I'm going to leave a link to her channel at the end screen, but for now, we'll just get into it. Number 1. You never know where a story will take you. It's one of the big grounds of this movie, and I think it is something that applies to everyone. When you are reading a story or writing a story, sometimes you don't know where you're going to be taken with the story. And with her journey, there was a lot of things that happened or plans that didn't work out, but ultimately led for a nice, long life. But beginning with the point on not knowing where a story is going to take you. The story does talk about her life in her early childhood and sharing photos, or illustrations I should say, of a lot of the characters that she created that became a part of the Peter Rabbit franchise later in life.
Not bad, Miss Beatrix. Do you have any animal stories for me today?
I don't. Sorry. Nothing new.
And one of her close childhood friends was very supportive in that early stage.
Oh, that's Jemima. She doesn't have a story yet. Not a proper one.
Jemima Duck?
Jemima Puddle Duck. And a stupider duck the world has never seen.
Number 2. Early rejection. There were two brothers in a publishing house that were quite harsh with their criticism towards her creativity, though they did give her a shot.
Bunnies in jackets with brass buttons. However do you imagine such things?
I don't imagine them. They're quite real. They're my friends.
The traditional publishing house consisted of mostly being run by the mother and 2 sons. There was also a 3rd son who it was his first job to be lined up with Beatrix Potter for her first book to be published.
Which other books have you supervised, Mr. Warren?
Personally?
Yes.
This will be my first. Miss Potter, I have recently informed my brothers and my mother that I'm no longer content to stay at home and play nursemaid solely because I am the youngest son. No, I would like a proper job working for my family's firm. And they have assigned me you.
Also, there was a sister within the family that Beatrix Potter became friends with. So within the opportunity taken, she did meet with one brother, though there was concerns because she felt like it was out of pity to get her book published, though sometimes it's taken that chance. And he also worked in, his name was Warren, he came up with some other suggestions to the way that the printing worked for better quality artwork to what Beatrix Potter did with her illustrations for her book to get it published. So there were certain interesting suggestions that paid off for the long term. And he had a good idea within the industry because he did his research to what was best for her needs and for her book.
Oh.
I've given your book a great deal of attention. Truly, I would like it to look colourful on the shelf so that it stands out from ordinary books.
Number 3. The dangers of being content. One thing I have talked about is being too content. I found when I wrote Dark Sparrow, I took a year off from writing and then I became too comfortable. There were different challenges in life, but there was also a certain part I was content. And being too content can also be a form of laziness. And I'm not saying that I'm lazy, just I took too much time off. Now, I've changed some things over time, but back to Miss Potter. She was content with the first book, but Warren encouraged her to write more books because he knew she had more creativity. So she agreed. She wrote some more books, and together they worked on some other publications. Though there are dangers of being too content in life and being too settled. Number 4. Falling in love.
I know you have decided not to marry. All my life I thought that I would not marry either, but something has happened that has caused me to change my mind.
Mr. Warren.
No, please, let me go on, for if I do not say what I have to say now, I fear I never will.
This is a subject matter that can be quite touchy for some, especially when there are professional boundaries in place. And he had to be honest about his feelings. Therefore, she was also tested and challenged between the moral grounds of being involved with someone on a more personal level when you have professional boundaries. Number 5. Mother doesn't know best.
Norman Vaughan is a tradesman, Beatrix. No Potter can marry into trade, and that's final.
And what are we? Father's money comes from grandfather's printing works in Lancashire. A trade, Mother.
I always consider, with your parents, you should honour thy mother and father. In this type of case, her mother had an ego and too much pride, and that's one of the deadly sins to be aware of. So within this situation, Beatrix remained quite a humble person, and that's something that I do respect. That even though she came into more wealth with what she created with the franchise for Peter Rabbit, she didn't let it get to her head.
And if grandfather hadn't run for Parliament, we'd still be living in the shadow of his factories. Your legacy came from Grandfather Leach's cotton trade. When did we become so high and mighty?
And from there, she worked on, unfortunately, separating from her immediate family because of the negative side of things. Because, yes, they also created jobs and saw themselves as being bigger than other people, and she didn't like that. She kept true to herself, and her mother didn't approve of Warren because she saw him to be an employee and not good enough, even though his family owned the business. And from there, Beatrix used her own means to set herself up further and separate from the family. She still kept closer contact with her father, but sometimes there are challenges that happen in family dynamics.
Norman Vaughan is a gentleman of comfortable means and not one bit beneath us. And I intend to marry him.
Not if you expect to take 1 penny of your inheritance.
You haven't disinherited Bertram for running off with a wine merchant's daughter. Happily, I'm a published author. I have means of my own. This discussion is over.
Number 6. Warren dies. This is the sad part of the movie, and it was a sad part of her life. He only died at age 37, so he was still quite young, and they had so many more goals ahead.
I loved him.
I loved him too. But he's gone.
There was a certain point of locking away and working on illustrations, though it was hard for her. His sister, however, was supportive. The 2 brothers were still nasty, and that was confirmed when I've done more research. Though, pulling herself out of the depression, Beatrix used her inheritance from her auntie within the family and from other points from what she's created with her own multiple sources of income and investments, and she bought Hilltop Farm. She went back to a part of her childhood and bought out the farm, and also got reconnected with an old childhood friend. Number 7. Simplify your life.
Your observations are woefully
Please,
inadequate.
sir, I am no longer in the habit of being lectured to, and thankfully I do not require your approval.
That is what she did. She simplified her life, and at Hilltop Farm, she did do a lot of gardening, and even today it has been kept and maintained as a historical landmark, and a lot of the flowers and things have been restored to keep the appearance of what it was in the time she wrote Peter Rabbit. And even with this little bit of footage,
We have been left a huge selection of photographs by Rupert Potter, Beatrix's father.
Yeah.
They were taken around 1908, 1912, and they show us not just what was growing in the garden, but where it was growing and the particular varieties.
on Hilltop Farm, she had a lot of time to work on illustrations. She had a simpler life. And yes, in time later, she did try to work things with the family, though her mother would still not approve of a lot of her life choices. But she simplified her life, and she still did a lot of wonderful works. And she also helped the community in a lot of other wonderful ways because of her success. Number 8, William Heels. Her old childhood friend. He helped her obtain Hilltop Farm. She also obtained some more real estate with his help. within the region. She also helped to restore certain places for employment and jobs. She was a job creator as well as a real estate holder. And with her childhood friend, they got married. So, yes, life and a book, you never know where the story's going to take you. And he was always supportive, even though they didn't have contact for a lot of years. He was still supportive of her by purchasing the books that she created. And from there, they built a relationship and they built a bigger empire together. And we do hear of A.A. Milne, who created Winnie the Pooh, and he was quite successful, living in a 100-acre paradise. Well, she owned 15 farms and over 4,000 acres of paradise.
Look, here's the veg garden. Can't you just imagine Peter Rabbit climbing through the gate? Look at it.
Number 9. 23 books, 12 books, and an audiobook. In the original collection, she wrote 23 books. I know it's a bit of an odd number, but hey, it still worked. It sold. And that's a career path that she took. She did do some other spin-off books and painting books or illustrations, though within another collection of 12 books, to the time that they're published and illustrations done even some years later, it's hard to say if it was still part of her original publications or whether she just outsourced some of the work to other people to create the other 12 books. It's hard to say what the definitive answer is. There is an audiobook about her life that's also available on audiobook. So I will one day check that out because I think it would be an interesting listen to just hear some of the story be told about her life. Number 10, final thoughts. I have to say, this movie, 5 out of 5. I enjoyed it. I also found, yes, I did more research outside of the movie and talked about that in today's video, and there's other things in the movie that I won't touch on, because there are different time restraints. Though, I think check it out for yourself. I will be doing more videos about movies that are about writing and about authors, because there's some interesting tips to learn or different thoughts to think about. And some of the tips may not be as complicated for children's books. However, sometimes in the videos, I hope to be able to inspire other authors to work on some other books, especially for the young authors within this channel. Otherwise, that is another story and shall be told another time.